Hello and welcome to a different version of FISM News. This is sort of an FISM News Debriefed. The reason we wanted to do this is because, well, obviously Sam Case just got back from CPAC in Florida, and we wanted to ask him a couple of questions about his experience, and we really just wanted to get to know what it was like, kind of be in his shoes while he was there. Obviously, we have all the content on fism.tv/FISM News. We have the interviews and different panels and speeches. And that's all wonderful content. We hope you'll go check that out. For today's purpose, for this purpose, we just want to really get to know what it was like for Sam himself. Welcome back, by the way, Sam.
Yeah. I love it here. It's a lot, it's a little hot in Florida.
Yeah.
So I'm digging the cooler temperatures. As you can see, this is definitely going to be more informal. You're going to get to know Ian and I a little bit more through this. This is not the same as FISM News. So if you guys like it, let us know. This is a new thing for all of us, but I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, with that being said, do you want me to ask my first question?
Sure, dive right in. Get in your little notepad. It's like Blue's Clues.
Got my little financial issues notepad here. So the first question I want to know is probably the most generic.
Okay.
Which is, what was CPAC like? Like, how were the people? How were the events? The food? What was it like? Just give me sort of a generic.
I already told you it was hot, so
that's the most of it.
I got off the plane and I went outside. I went, oh no, oh no, this should be banned. It's 85 degrees and it's February.
Oh, okay.
So that was no good for me. But other than that, they had central air, so it was fine.
Okay.
How was CPAC? So it was my first time going there. It was our first time as FISM doing anything on the ground like that. So I was a little nervous at first just because we didn't know how it was going to go until I found this out, that was kind of how everything was there. Everything was, I don't know how this is going to go. We're just going to wing it.
Oh, really?
That was kind of the environment.
Like other people, other corporations, conglomerations, I don't know what they call it.
Yeah, everyone was on an equal playing field, I'd say.
Of panic?
A little bit. But that kind of made it more fun because you realize everyone's just a person and everyone's trying to meet and connect. You're all part of this ecosystem of CPAC, where everyone wants to get to know each other. You understand we all believe similar things, which is kind of exciting. You're not going to get canceled for saying something you shouldn't say, which I think was pretty relieving for a lot of people. That there was an element of freedom.
Well, I mean, that was the whole topic there, too.
Uncanceled.
That was the whole theme.
Yeah, and that was a recurring theme, too, is just how much fun everyone was and how fun the conservative movement has become. So you think back in the day, conservatives, the old stodgy guys at the country club with the cigars, and you come in and they're like, "Who are you? I don't like you here." That's not what that is. We're definitely the rowdy bunch now. And a guy from CPAC said that, and from Turning Point.
Yes.
He's like, we're the fun party now. And I made a joke with him. I said, yeah, we're the punk rock generation now.
Right.
And I only say that half jokingly because I like rock music, but there's an element of truth to it. Is back in the day.
I mean, Johnny Rotten did say Trump was pretty punk at the time too.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So there is the little bit of that rebellion spirit there. There's we're breaking the rules a little bit and we're having a good time because the left has made everything into rules. They're the new Puritans, and there's an element of fun and rebellion being that counterculture coming up and doing something in their own way, and you feel like you're kind of getting away with something. In fact, I remember the Hyatt on one night, they slipped something on their door. They're like, please wear your mask. And everyone was, but it was kind of fun to get that reminder and be like, oh, we're kind of like the bad boys here. Yeah. which was fun for sure. And everyone was just so nice. And they loved everyone there. They loved the country too. That was the other thing. I mentioned this on Dan's show earlier today when he had me on. Even though Republicans are out of the White House, they're out of the Senate, they're out of Congress, they have no real levers of power on the federal level. They have power in governments, in state governments, but there was still so much love for the country and its history and what it represents. So even though they're out of the control, that has no effect on their love of the country. I remember I saw a study, I don't remember the exact numbers, but when Democrats are out of power, their love for the country goes because that's the direct relationship to their power to their love for the country. Conservatives, they just love the country no matter what.
Right.
Sure, it might dip a little bit because if Barack Obama's making silly speeches overseas, it kind of makes you feel a little sour about the state of the nation, but your overall love for it is still
Your
there.
passion for
And
America.
that made me feel really good because that
Okay.
going forward, that's going to be it. It's like we're the pro-America people.
Okay.
And then the food was just overpriced.
Yeah, you told me you had a $12 sandwich.
It was a good sandwich.
Yeah, but it's $12.
They knew what they were doing there at the Hyatt. They knew exactly what it was. They're like, we got you here. You're tired. You don't want to go anywhere. You're gonna buy this sandwich.
Here's a sandwich.
I bought it. I really did, but it was good.
All right.
And I was making a joke there, but that just made me think that was another thing. There was a good sense of levity for everyone. I think there's this idea that the right currently doesn't. They can't see what they're in a sense. Like there was the golden Donald Trump statue.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't see it, which is a tragedy. Because it looked pretty funny.
Getting a picture with
cool.
that, yeah, that would have been fun.
But that was the point, I think, is
Right.
that it was funny.
It wasn't meant to be serious. It was meant to be a joke.
No, a joke and a little bit of an ode to Donald Trump. Just be like, yeah, we like him. But there was definitely a sense of, yeah, we get it.
Right.
We get it.
Okay.
Like I said, I was talking to you. Fox Nation hosted the first night, and they're like, and brought to you tonight, our special drink is the Fox Teeny.
Which I still don't know what's in it.
I don't know. They never said what was in it.
That's frightening.
But that's the joke, because like that's a joke. It's
Yeah,
the Fox
yeah,
Teeny. It's
of
silly,
course.
but it's fun. So, and I don't think people on the outside got that there was a little bit of an inside joke the whole time.
Okay.
Which was nice.
So we talked about how the theme was America Uncanceled.
Yes.
Which has been a big thing lately. Dr. Seuss got his 6 books canceled.
Yes, that's right.
And Mr. Potato Head is now just Potato
He's
Head.
just Potato Head.
Was there any topic or any thing that you witnessed or saw that you think maybe they shouldn't have covered, or do you think maybe there was something that was missing while you were there?
So I don't think there was anything that shouldn't have been covered. I thought the idea of cancel culture as the main topic was very smart on their part, because regardless of your political opinions about things like taxes or healthcare or whatever, that's an issue that's going to get people on board. There's plenty of Democrats who aren't like far leftist people who can't stand this stuff either.
Sure.
So by making that the crux of the message, you're going to get people on your side that wouldn't traditionally
That's a good point.
be rooting for you, because most people want to be left alone. They're like buzz off. Who cares? It's Mr. Potato Head.
Yeah.
If you can't stand Mr. Potato Head, that's a you problem. That's not Mr. Potato Head's problem.
He didn't want to, well, he didn't choose to be Mr. Potato Head in the first place. That was just how they marketed him.
Yeah, so I thought that was great. The only thing, and I can see why you wouldn't address this either, I do think it might have been good for at least there to be a conversation about the Capitol Hill riot.
Okay. Did they not touch on that?
They might have, and I just might have missed it. I didn't personally see anyone talk about it.
Okay.
So maybe they didn't want to, because that's just falling into the media's trap of pinning that on conservatives when it wasn't really their fault. But they are fringe right-wing people.
Right.
So even though we're not the same guys, we don't like that stuff, they are vaguely on our team, like on the same side of the aisle. Even though we don't like anything they stand for, we didn't like what they did. So I thought there was maybe an element of responsibility just to mention it and for 10 minutes or something, and let that be it.
But from your perspective, you didn't see or hear much about it.
I didn't, no,
Okay.
and that might have been something good. But again, I can see, because
Sure, there was a lot going on.
if they did
Yeah.
bring it up, maybe the mainstream media would just focus on that.
That's
so,
a
and
good point.
they are trying to distance themselves from it, and the media's been talking about it enough anyway. It's the only thing we have heard about in terms of Republicans for the last month is the Capitol Hill riots. So maybe they just were like, they're saying that anyway.
Right,
That's a dead horse.
Yeah, they've been beating the dead horse for that one.
Sure.
True.
So I can see that one either ways.
Okay. You mentioned something else too about you said the Hyatt slipped a note under your door that said, "Please don't forget to wear your mask." How did the convention handle COVID-19 and the guidelines and regulations that are usually in place? I know Florida's a little more lax,
Right, but we were in Orlando.
than other states comparatively.
So,
I had to think about that. I was like, right, okay.
and I think I could be wrong. So if I'm just shooting from the hip here, I think DeSantis kind of leaves it up. Governor of Florida, DeSantis, lets the counties decide for themselves how they're going to handle things, I think.
Okay.
So because you're in a big city area, obviously more left-leaning, they're going to handle things a little bit more stricter just because that's generally how the left's been handling that.
Right.
So I think that was a big influence too. And also it was hard to tell because we were in the Hyatt and businesses figure things out for themselves. It's not like DeSantis can be as anti-lockdown, anti-mask all he wants, but the Hyatt's its own business. They're going to figure out what they want.
That's true.
But for the most part, I saw people wearing masks. There was talk of, oh, they're not social distancing. I'm like, well, because it's a convention. And most people wore masks. There were times where you'd be in your booth and people would take it off. I heard stories of CPAC people giving staff members a hard time. I didn't see it. I believe that probably happened.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of people there and sometimes people are jerks.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if someone wasn't wearing a mask, someone would say, hey, can you put that on? And everyone would say, yeah, sure. They might give them a snarky comment. But
Okay. But so it was...
no one's getting in fist fights.
Right. It sounds like it was
I
generally
think someone
understood.
might have gotten thrown out. I think there was one person who was belligerent about it. I don't remember the
About not
details.
wearing
Someone
one?
said someone got kicked out about
Okay.
not wearing a mask. Who knows? Who knows?
There's a lot going on at that convention. Just seeing the videos, it's so impressive to me how many people were there. And to be fair, like you see people in the background, they're wearing masks. It's not like everybody had their mask off at all times. But because
Kind of just for an interview, you pull the mask
you pull the
off
mask
because you're
off,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's my kill shot. Got to get my interview when
Right.
you want to see my face.
the Kevin Sorbo interview,
Yeah, he asked.
So
He's
good.
like, we're gonna take this off. We're gonna take this mask off.
I love it. Okay, that's good to know. Actually, speaking of interviews, in your opinion, what was your favorite interview or event or experience that you encountered while you were there? Or one of all
So
three?
I think the fun thing was the thrill of the chase in general. With,
Okay.
with anyone is like you were on the hunt and you got someone. You're like, I bagged them.
Yeah.
And you kind of added that to you mounted that on your wall. I mean, I was so sad we didn't get Ted Cruz. I said to Dan, that was like the 18-point buck that we didn't
That you
get.
wanted to-
we
yeah.
missed him, but. So that was fun. I love talking to Kevin Sorbo because he's such a concept to me. And I say that because I didn't grow up watching Hercules or really anything that he was in. I think he was in a video game that I played, and I was like, oh, he has a cool voice. So I'm more a fan of Kevin Sorbo just as Kevin Sorbo,
right.
than anything that he's in. He's kind of like the Christian James Woods on Twitter, so that's kind of fun too.
Yeah.
But he was a great interview, and just asking cultural questions was very fun to talk to him. So he, as a person, might have been my favorite. But the best interviews was anyone talking about cancel culture, I think. Just asking them, how did you survive it? So I talked to Dr. Daryl Scott, the pastor who supported Trump, and asking him, as someone that the mob came for, how to endure it. And he said the line, I've heard it from so many people, you can't get canceled if you don't let them cancel you, which is to say you don't apologize unless you directly wrong someone, and then you only directly apologize to that person, because what does a mob care about your apology? They're out for blood. They don't care. They don't even care if you feel bad.
Right, they have one goal in mind, and it's not your feelings.
Again, as much as I wanted to get the head on the wall for the interview, they want the head on the wall that they canceled you.
Yes. Okay, so that actually brings up another question then, and maybe you just answered it, but aside from just your personal favorite, do you think there was one that was a little more important, or maybe the most important?
I think
You'd say maybe Dr. Daryl Scott?
I think interviews like that,
Okay.
where we discuss those more cultural issues. And one that was more interesting to me generally was Cassandra Spencer, who was a whistleblower for Project Veritas, just because that was such a unique interview. She's not particularly famous or anything in that, you get these guys like Ben Carson, there's people mobbing them, and they're like, Dr. Carson, Dr. Carson. There wasn't that, but she was interesting enough that was a story that I wanted to actually ask her genuine questions, other than just the soundbite questions that you get to ask people of, what do you think about the Republican Party? You got to have a longer conversation with her and ask more detail-oriented questions. So she worked at Facebook, and she said, these guys are pretty biased against Christians and conservatives. So I was able to delve into that a little bit more and say, how like how on display is that even at Facebook? If you're just the average schmo working at Facebook, you're like, this place is pretty biased towards conservatives, or someone has to be in the know knowing that. And she said, yeah, it's pretty on display. So that's something I wouldn't have known, and it was just a good interview because it felt more like a conversation.
Okay, so that one felt a little more natural than maybe some of the other, like you said, the soundbitey ones where you ask, like, what do you think?
And that's not to say those are bad. Those are good things to say, because I was curious about anyone what they thought the future of the Republican Party would be.
Right. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. I have another question here that I'd like to ask. And this is, again, another sort of generic question, but something that's interesting to me. What was it like? How did you feel being in a room full of so many, like, great conservative and Christian thinkers and activists?
Sure.
And, like, that's, to me, it sounds a little threatening, because I'd be there and be like, well, in my head, I'd be like, I'm a nobody. Why am I here?
Sure.
But I
thought I'd feel that way because I grew up as a political nerd. This is Republican Comic-Con.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And the people that are there, I don't think politicians are celebrities. I don't think they necessarily should be treated as celebrities. Yeah. I don't think that journalists are celebrities. But in this niche context, they are. And that's kind of appropriate because in this very specific, you're dealing with conservatives who follow these people. So in that way, they're celebrities. I kind of was like, oh, this is interesting. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have the shock. I'm the kid that when I was a baby crying, Newt Gingrich would put me to sleep. I'm not kidding.
Right, yeah.
If I was crying, my mom said, Newt Gingrich would get you to stop. So I'm that guy. And you get there and you're like, they're just people. You realize they're just people.
Yeah.
They're making mistakes. They're like, where am I going next? And you feel free just to go and talk to them. The hardest part, which had nothing to do with who they were, it was just, I'm a very agreeable person. I don't want to be the guy shoving his way to the front and be like, I got to ask you a question.
Right.
That was not for me, but I love the experience of being in an atmosphere where those people were there, that you could ask them those questions.
Right.
Does that get at what you're asking?
I'm actually glad you said too, because in my head I think the same way, where people are just people. They're not necessarily deified just because they do a certain good thing or another certain good thing.
And I think it's because you see them.
But because I see them and I agree with them and I like what they have to say.
Isn't that weird? You see someone on TV,
and I'm like, oh, wow, it's you. Yeah.
And it gives you a glow. But I found that's instantly shattered when you see them in the third dimension.
You see them face to face.
Right. You're a person. That's it.
So along these same lines, I have another question as well, which was, you got to be in the room when President Trump gave a speech.
Yes.
What was it like to see a president, and to be in the same room as a president? Not just specifically Trump, but a president.
I was talking to Luke, our camera guy, and he said, the only person I think I'd be starstruck by would be a president, any president, just because that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because we were so far away, I don't know if you really got that.
It wasn't the same vibe.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. You're like, wow, I'm in the same room as the president of the United States. I guess former at this point, but they still keep the title.
All right.
So that was neat. And he even said, congratulations on getting in. He's like, I know many people would have killed to be in here. I'm like, that's very true.
Okay, probably.
But so, and you're far away, you're watching him on a screen. So that wasn't particularly unique. It was objectively, but emotionally it wasn't. I'm not fainting.
It didn't impact you in the way.
Fainting like a Michael Jackson concert.
Right, yeah. You're so glad you brought that up. That's really funny.
There he is. There's Donald. No, it wasn't that.
And I'm glad you said that too, because I didn't expect like a faint-worthy reaction, but I just had the thought where I thought about being in your shoes.
They gave him a cheer.
Well, yeah, but the way I thought about just being in your shoes, I was like, wow, he was in the same room as a president.
I was almost disappointed by his entrance. He spent an hour coming out. I'm like, he better jump up out of that stage with
Michael Jackson.
With the Michael Jackson. He needed to build that up. He didn't. He just walked out.
Well, I mean, that is Trump style.
Where are the fireworks?
But was it God Bless the USA was playing?
And they played Macho Man by the Village People.
They played Macho Man? That's fun.
It's such a bop of a song.
I thought he does YMCA usually.
Well, he's moving on. He's moving up.
He's moving to different stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming in the Air tonight, which
he played.
I think he thought that was about him. It kind of was.
You know what? It's very unique. It's a certain taste.
Every song was vaguely appropriate.
But in a way you might not be able to place. You just know, like, yeah, maybe.
Trump thinks he's a macho man.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. That's true.
A little cheesy, for sure. And Village People are cheesy, but I like it.
Sure. Well, yeah, of course. That's what's fun about it.
Yeah.
This might be the last question I have. Here, let me double check. Yes, the last question I have for you. Did you walk away having learned anything from CPAC?
So, can I just, what do you mean specifically? So
Sure.
me as a person, me as the career, or just like for the conservative movement, or that, more, I'm guessing more in that angle.
I'm leaving it up to interpretation in that way. I just imagine being there, being surrounded, getting to talk to a lot of these people, you end up learning some. Like
So
you even
I
said
learned like it was an incredible blessing.
Right.
That was the
Okay.
one big
Yeah.
thing I really took away. There were a lot of things that worked out for us that God's hand was on, because a lot of big people weren't getting in to film the president, and things just lined up right.
Yeah.
That we were able to talk to him, and that happened quite a bit. That there are people more qualified, more whatever, that could have been in positions we were, but we were just in right place, right time. That I couldn't control that. I think one of the big things I wanted to gauge was, again, where people think the Republican Party is going, and everyone's very optimistic about it. I think they
sounded
think Joe
optimistic.
Biden's just kind of there. Joe Biden wasn't really talked about that much at all.
Interesting.
He was teased a little bit.
Sure.
The Democrats were teased, but it was much more a focus than that was, what are we going to do as a party, which I felt was good.
I
'Cause
would
the message
agree.
can't be in 2022, we hate Joe Biden.
Yeah.
What even is that? You got to offer something
I mean,
to people.
even as like political strategy, that's not a good strategy, because Joe Biden is he's a very beloved person by a lot of people because he seems tame.
Yes.
Obviously, that was a lot of the message that I saw from CPAC was that he's not. But the way he presents himself is this very friendly, very sort of down to earth guy.
I think he's not even the issue though, because he doesn't really do anything. It's not like he's out there making speeches or even he himself driving policy. So I think that they realize that's kind of just like,
That wouldn't work.
it's shooting at something that's not really there. The issue is the left's ideology that it is in its current state, that it's gone off those rails to this puritanical, shrill, and mean place, and un-American. That's what the issue is going to be going forward. And the question of what to do with Donald Trump, as he's brought a lot of good things to our party. He defined Trumpism, which I wrote an op-ed about this right afterwards, basically just sounded like conservatism.
Right.
Other than tariffs, which isn't in the modern sense of conservatism, that's not something that's typically been something that the Republican Party's been for. If you go back in time, there was some isolationism and protectionism was an element. So that might have been the only new thing, really. And he brought a more strong flavor of patriotism. But other than that, I thought it was good things. He brought just a spark of energy to the Republican Party, which is why I think when that straw poll came out, I'd have to double check the numbers if you don't mind real quick.
Yes, and actually, just you mentioned the straw poll. I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you. There was a straw poll happen after CPAC, or
So it's to the
during
people
CPAC?
during CPAC of what they think. And I've seen different interpretations of it. I'll give you what I think it means.
Okay.
So 95% of the people at CPAC support Trump, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think they're very happy for the life he's brought to the Republican Party. He's taught the Republican Party that they can fight. You can fight and win, and you don't have to play the left's game. You don't have to use their language, and you can push back the media. He taught them that the media is not on your side. The mainstream media is not on your side. They're not neutral arbiters. They're fighting against you. They're working for the Democrats right now. So I think that's a lot of things they like about him. Interestingly enough, 68% of people there wanted him running again. That's really high. But only 55% would vote for him. So there's this weird discrepancy there of people who want him to run again but won't vote for him.
Sure.
And 55% is a lot. That is a significant number for that straw poll. However, I don't know if it's a good number for Donald Trump.
Why would you say that?
Because that means you're in Trump City, in CPAC. He's coming off at like this huge popularity. 95% support him. Only half the people there would support him in a runoff. That's a big discrepancy there. And I don't know what to place that with specifically, other than that maybe the ideas that Trump has brought, they think there might be, and the lessons he's taught the Republican Party, there are new people that are imbibing them in a way that's more politically viable. maybe they can articulate those ideas better. Maybe they have the better manners that Trump has. They don't go off the cuff. They don't have the ego. Something like that.
Okay.
And that's why Ron DeSantis, who I think is a more polished version of Trump, has a lot of those good qualities, had 24%.
And Ron DeSantis is the governor of Florida.
Governor of Florida.
Correct. Okay.
And I think partially just too because everyone's really happy with the way he's governing that state. He had 24% of support. And interestingly enough, I was doing a little bit of digging into this. It is the runner-up, typically, who ends up being the candidate. It's not the person who gets number one. It's the person who gets number two is more likely to be the guy. Not always,
right.
But you saw back when Mitt Romney was the candidate, he wasn't number one. It was Ron Paul. People wanted Ron Paul. It was Mitt Romney. And there was a trend to that I saw. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, it could be Trump again in 2024. I don't know. I don't know if Trump knows.
But if he does, that'd be a little scary.
But if history holds, then it could be DeSantis. It looks good for him. When they took Trump out of the picture, they said, who would you vote for that's not Trump? He blew it out of the water. I don't remember the number, but
DeSantis
it was
did?
significant.
Okay.
Significantly. I think the other runner-ups were I think it was Trump Jr., much lower, like 8%. Compared to DeSantis, I'm making up 40%. I'm just making up that number. Ted Cruz and Kristi Noem, who's the governor of South Dakota.
Okay. Okay.
So it was just interesting. It was interesting to take away what that is, and just the question still there is what's Trump's role going to be
right
in the party, and I think he has a role to play. I think he could be a good media figure and cultural figure. He doesn't have to be in politics. He might still choose to be, but.
It seems like it'd be hard for him to get out of politics at this point, just with how much he's invested.
He could still be in politics, though, and not be a politician.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think you're right. We'll have to see what he does, and that straw poll information is good food for thought too. Like you said, it's usually the runner-up.
And again,
or
other
historically
people take it different ways. There are a lot of people taking it as like this is a historic margin. It is. Mm-hmm. This is like the highest percentage anyone's had, but it's divided.
Yeah.
Heavily.
Yeah.
Do with that what you will.
Right.
You could see that it's really good for Trump. I'm looking at that number. I'm thinking maybe not. I could be completely wrong.
Well, we'll just have to see. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and hopefully we get to
do
this more. I think this is a lot of fun, a little bit different from what we typically do.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, all of you who have joined us, and thank you to Sam and all of the other people part of FISM News and just the FISM TV team in general who went down to CPAC. I know Dan was down there as well and got to run his show. And we thank you to all the people behind the scenes. We thank you also the people at CPAC for obviously allowing us to be there and
awesome.
It was great to get that experience and to allow us to interview so many great people. We want to thank you, the audience, as well for viewing this. Please go visit fism.tv/FISM News because there you can see all of the CPAC content that we have. I don't even know how many interviews up already.
Oh, I know.
But they're all...
There's a lot of them.
There are a lot. That's true.
I was there. I remember.
Right. Yeah, he got to live it firsthand, and you get to live it through the site. And so please visit the website, leave a comment, like it, share it with your friends. And we hope to see you next time on FISM News Debriefed.
Yeah, that's great. If that's what we call, if you guys like it, let us know. And if you want to hang out with us more, check out our Twitters. I'm at Samuel A. Case. It's not FISM News, but you're going to get a little bit feel for my sense of humor, or having a lot more, a little bit more casual, tone poking fun at the left.
A little bit like this. A little bit like this. And mine is at the Ian Patrick too. Thank you guys so much. Have a good night and God bless.
Have a good one.